CEV, not equipped with tear gas, knocks down a corner of the building, and a portion of the roof collapsed in order to clear a path to the main tower so that the other CEV could insert gas in the area. Okay, so here is how it ends for Koresh. In the course of the advance on the compound, the church building caught fire, obviously, and this is the part that's disputed, but barricaded inside the building, 79, I'm going to say that again, 79 Branch Davidians perished in the ensuing blaze. So these people either burned alive or shot each other, or were shot. 22 of these victims were children under the age of 17, which is just fucked. According to the FBI, Steve Schneider, Koresh's right-hand man, who, quote, probably realized he was dealing with a fraud, quote, shot and killed Koresh and then committed suicide with the same gun. A second account gave a totally different story. Quote, Koresh, then 33, died of a gunshot wound to the head during the course of the fire. No one knows who killed him or if he killed himself. End of quote. The medical examiner reported that although federal law enforcement personnel fired no shots that day, 20 people, including 5 children under the age of 14, had been shot, and a 3-year-old had been stabbed in the chest. Okay, that ends the siege on Waco. Fucking 9 people survived, 79 dead in this fire. And well, let's talk about it. Blake, I'm gassed right now, so it's your turn, buddy. Why don't you talk about what you think happened? Obviously, we don't know, but your thoughts on what went on that last day.
Well, my thoughts are, one way or two, that was the last day that David Koresh ever breathed. A breath of life.
Which is
good. I don't know whether or not he shot himself or was killed by someone else, but
it was like in his forehead, though. It seems like not the type of way you would kill yourself.
No, but then again, I can't speak to that because George Reeves, I'm sure you're aware of him, was shot in a weird way that the police and everybody else that investigated that scene concluded he had committed suicide. But shooting yourself like holding the gun in the back of the head, shooting yourself doesn't seem like the easiest way to do it, or even the most possible way to really do it. So I don't think a forehead shot would be something that he would have maybe done on his own. He might have been, thinking about it, he might have been praying down on his hands and knees or something, and looked up and was shot. As someone approached him, that's very possible. That would make sense to me as far as a forehead shot, because it seems like it would be hard to shoot someone in the forehead while they were running at you, which I don't see why David Koresh would be running towards someone with a gun. And second of all, if he was running away, there would be no way he would be shot in the forehead unless he was running in the direction of gunfire, which I don't think even he would do. So I think he was probably doing something else, and then he was distracted, and when he looked up at whoever it was, they shot him. Because it seems to me that's what makes sense. And then
I'm going to do this bit by bit with you. I want to talk about that with you, too. That way we're not just, giving all tons of info. Let's talk about each thing kind of bit by bit. Since you mentioned that, I'm going to say I think another member, whether it was Steve Schneider or not, shot him because it was in the forehead. The reason why I say this is because there were Branch Davidian children that said that Koresh was teaching them how to kill themselves if something were to happen. And he was telling them to point up, from the bottom of your chin to make sure that, it doesn't just injure you, that it actually kills you. It's not the way he killed himself is what I'm saying, or how he was killed. So it would make sense to me that he killed himself. I don't think he was killed by the FBI because the claim is that they didn't shoot anybody. And if you watch the video, that might be true. I'm not sure if it is or not. I just don't see what the point of them shooting anybody at this point was anyway. So, yeah, I'm going to say one of the other Branch Davidians killed him. That's my opinion. Don't know who, don't know why, but I'll leave it at that. So, Blake, continue on, my friend.
The next point that is the children. I have to talk to my children. So many children were dead, and I don't think, like you said, if they were being instructed on how to kill themselves, I don't think that they would have all probably been able to do it themselves. I mean, of course, they had enough weapons to do that. Obviously enough ammo, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem, because from everything that I've read, media reports and people that were on the scene post incident, it seems like that it looked like several of the people that were dead of either murder, suicides, or suicides, and I just don't know that all the kids would have been able to do that. I mean, I guess it's possible, but I guess for some reason, emotionally and psychologically, thinking of a small child, a young child picking up a pistol and shooting themselves in the head, just doesn't seem like, I guess, something that I'm ready to acknowledge, something that I can deal with, because I have young ones, as you do, and I don't know, just something about it I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't want to believe that the kids did it to themselves.
No, I don't think they did. I think the other ones killed them. That's what I think. The other Davidians. Mercy killing in their mind.
I mean, it's a possible thing. Obviously, it's possible for a kid to kill themselves or kill someone else. We see it in the news all the time. But I just don't think on that massive scale, because it also seems like the way they were talking about the bursts of gunfire, you coordinate all the kids who are going to go kill themselves at the same time, right at that same moment, because that's not how it happens. Usually in mass suicides, they all kill themselves in one moment, in one specific time period, not like. The only one I've ever heard of that was different than that was Heaven's Gate. That's because it seemed like the last person who they found that was dead wasn't covered up because there was no one else to cover that person up. So it's like they shot themselves or drank the poison, and then whoever else was with them covered them up, and then they drank the poison, and then the person beside them covered them up. So it just seems like there's a methodology. And usually with mass suicides like that, it all happens at the same time. But even you said it, they reported different bursts of gunfire throughout the compound, and not all at the same time. It was in different places, different times. So I think, like you said, they probably killed the kids and then started picking each other off. And the ones who weren't picking each other off picked themselves off, so. It's just one of those things. Part of me really wants to know what went on inside of it, and then another part of me doesn't, because I think that if I was to ever really know what happened in there, that it would change my view on a lot of things, like as far as what I think human life is capable of, because people like David Koresh, people like Charlie Manson, people like, Richard Ramirez and all these others, you just don't want to think that people are capable of that kind of thing. But in situations like this, it becomes all too real. We know people are capable, but you just don't want to know what levels they get to that. And I guess that's where I'm standing. There's a tremendous loss of life, and like I said, it's a miracle that 9 people made it out.
Yeah, it is. Blake, who do you think started the fires? FBI or Koresh's people?
That's a good question, Travis. And after doing some research on it and putting some options in my own head so that I could try to maybe play it out in my head and see how it went, it's possible either way. I do know that years later, they admitted, they being the government, that the tear gas that they used was flammable, some of it. And I think
there's some of it, but supposedly they shot it into the unoccupied portion of the compound. So they claim.
Yeah, supposedly they did. But how are you going to know which areas were unoccupied?
Well, I mean, obviously they proved that they'll lie to cover up the, whatever's happened. So we know that.
Right, but I'm just saying, it's like, okay, so this area appears to be, unoccupied. Let me shoot some of this off. Well, it might be unoccupied, but what about the last cult member that was in there smoking a cigarette before he went to go do his thing? You just shot tear gas in there where the cigarette was. Tear gas is flammable. You just shot it in the room where there's open flame and heat. Now what happens? Or
See, I think the fires started too fast. I really think that the Davidians started the fires too. Just said fuck it, because they held up signs like you're going to burn and things like that. They there's clues that they would have been the ones that did it.
Right, and
I don't know. It was such a public thing. I think the FBI would have fucked up, would have known that they would have gotten fucked for doing this. You know, just my opinion.
Right.
I mean,
right. That, and I can't say for sure one way or another. I can't say yes, the Davidians did it. I can't say yes, the government did it. All I can say is it happened. But I'm saying it's just as easy to think that it's possible that they shot a canister into a room where there was heat, a flame or something, or they could have shot it into, and it would have hit and exploded next to some ammunition, which could have set off a fire. And then in that case, it's their fault, but nobody did it on purpose. They could have shot it into the room to clear the room out, and in doing so, inadvertently hit some ammunition and caused a chain reaction that caused a fire. That's not something that's just so far-fetched and so far based out of reality that it can't happen.
Right.
You know?
It's a crazy situation. It really was. I mean, I think there's people out there that think that the FBI burned these kids alive, and I don't believe that. I don't, at least not intentionally if they did, you know. Don't get me wrong, I think the FBI fucked up just like the ATF did, but I don't think their intent was as malicious as people make it out to be. And so
I think part of the initial reaction and the uproar that happened after with everyone is the loss of life of the kids. That perpetuated people into a state of anger, you know, that couldn't be easily subdued. They were mad. These kids are all dead. You guys could have done this different. This is your fault. If you wouldn't have went in there and blown off tear gas, blasting through the building with your tanks, those kids might still be alive. The people that were the accusers of the government, their hearts were in the right place because they were thinking of the kids, but the way they articulated the thoughts in their hearts might have been articulated in a way that they shouldn't have been. People were grieving. That was a grievous situation. Those people all died, you know, except for the 9 that got out. You know, the rest of them died. They perished in a building that was on fire and in pools of blood and ammunition and smoke, and just, it was, I can only imagine. I can't imagine. Even as a writer, you can't imagine something like that. You know, put yourself there. The despair, the desolation, the horror. I mean, all that happened in this one place, you know, and all at once. Within, you know, it went from day one, and then 51 days later, in the span of 6 hours, it reached its peak, and, you know, all those people died, and then the building burned down. So it was escalation on a scale that's just tremendous, and not in a good way. It started bad, it ended worse. It started bad with the initial death, those people that died, the agent, the Davidians, that, you know, whichever unspecified amount of Davidians were dead on the first day, and then it only got worse. So nobody won in this. It was a tremendous loss of life, and it was a tragedy. And it's just mind-boggling to think 26 years later we're still talking about this. And for years and years that'll be what it is. I would venture to say another 26 years they'll still be talking about it.
You know, the thing about this whole thing is, you know, I know we can point blame at the ATF, we can point blame at the FBI, we can point blame at whoever, but ultimately there's one person responsible for this whole thing. His name's David Koresh. You know what I mean? None of this would have happened if he would just turn himself in. Maybe if he wasn't fucking kids. Maybe if he wasn't, you know, stockpiling ammo. Maybe if he wasn't doing this, that, this, all these other things. This could have been prevented. I realize, you know, that the government was at fault on some level, but at the end of the day, one person, David Koresh. And, you know, you can give me all these sob stories, and I agree, you know, it's sad, but, like, when people try to act like, you know, the Branch Davidians were innocent victims, the only innocent victims there were the kids, because they're the only ones that, you know, didn't choose to be there. So, I mean, it's just like Jonestown. Just like Jonestown, a lot of these people, who fucking killed themselves or were killed. I mean, these idiots got themselves in this position, so it's hard for me to feel too bad for them. It's